life, of course, and we get to not only do this podcast today, but we have a Lakers game as well, so that'll be fun. Make sure you guys follow the Playback Network channel as well. We'll be live on there later, going over the game, so that should be another fun one. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm feeling great. I'm really excited about this week's conversation. There have been some downs, but I feel like there's a lot of good, positive ups to talk about this upcoming week. So I'm locked in. I'm excited to have you guys here and talk some fun Lakers basketball with the Quest for 18 crew.
Yeah, I agree. I love the optimism. It was a long week in Vegas for me, but a great week. Look, I didn't go there like pretending like I'm mind of Braun and I got a gambling addiction. You know what I mean? Like I shout out to Mal in the chat, by the way. But I was there for work. It was a long week, got to see some of the Laker games. It was a little rough at times. I think it was very up and down. I literally just told Earl before this podcast, I was like, I'm kind of in a mixed bag kind of with my reactions for the Lakers because things have been so inconsistent. I guess we don't know what this team really is. But it's all going to be fun. It's always going to be entertaining with the Lakers. We know that one way or another. I know when we streamed the Grizzlies game over on Playback, it was a mess of a game, but it was also, we kind of kept saying like, oh, this is the funniest game of the year, because I did think it was like very interesting at times at the minimum, right? But overall, just shout out to our streams, which are on a different channel, as some of you guys know, Playoff Sports Network on Playback. However, I can announce that the Playoff Sports Network brand will be doing a little bit of a reshifting as part of my vision and just to align more with Quest for 18 podcast. I will say that our room where we do Laker streams is going to be called something a lot more related to the Lakers and kind of be like a sister channel of Quest for 18 podcast due to the amazing work by Earl and Alan and Alex in those streams as well. We are going to make that more cohesive, and then Playoff Sports Network will still exist, but there'll be other rooms and accounts and channels for other teams where we'll have creators run up some of those rooms. So the ultimate vision would just be to get that brand to the place where we can have a Nuggets room on Playback streaming games and a Knicks room and etc. And then, sports accounts online on Twitter, on TikTok for a lot of the teams. So we are going to be like kind of expanding and restructuring in that way now that I'm blessed with a little more free time after work. But as far as our Lakers streams, they'll be a lot more cohesive and clear, and hopefully we'll get a great new audience of Lakers fans when we rename that room in a Lakers with a Lakers title and just make it more attached to Quest for 18 so that Lakers fans can tune into both this and our actual Lakers streams during the same week and feel like it's the same thing. So that's it for me.
For sure. At least let's start with this week and talk about, at least from the last time we were there, the Lakers were, I believe, at least back-to-back losses versus the Phoenix Suns and Cleveland Cavaliers. Since then, we've been 2-2 since our last podcast. And overall, like, is this Lakers team mid? Like, do you guys feel like they're progressing now that we made a little small substitution? Or is where these excitement levels down below?
Yeah, for me, it's really a healthy mix of in between. Like, nobody can convince me that this is a championship team with the way things are right now. I know there's a lot of conversations about Cam Reddish and how sustainable that is. All that depends on Cam Reddish's really his level on the offensive end. Will it be consistent? Will he be able to hit catch and shoot threes like we expect him to? Will he be able to flow on the offensive side? We know he can play defense, but how long does that level of Cam Reddish sustain as a starting level two guard in the NBA? That's the biggest Boom, biggest question. 2, I know we heard the D'Angelo Russell quote, and I quote, I left all my ego at the door. I just want to win games. Well, we've heard stuff like that before. And that's no knock at D'Lo. I get it. Like, you're an NBA player, you sign a contract, you expected to be a starter for Lakers. But when things aren't working, I feel like we have to be able to make changes. For me, and even if D'Lo goes crazy and stuff like that, I still think we have to trade him. He is the best asset we can use to make a trade without completely tearing this team apart. I feel like personally, we've won games this year with D'Angelo Russell having little to no impact on the court. So imagine you trade him away and replace him with pieces that actually fit next to Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Then that kind of sustains the idea of, okay, are the Lakers fixed? Maybe so. Because I think Jake mentioned this during our live stream. All right, it doesn't look so bad if Cam Reddish is like maybe 6-7 off the bench, coming in as a backup 2 or small forward. Then it's looking good for the Lakers. But as of right now, D'Angelo Russell, I get what he's saying. Like Miles said in the chat, like the comment does kind of annoy me a little bit because you can kind of tell. Obviously, we know it bothers him. Like, it's no secret. I think you guys were talking about it the other day. Like, D'Lo, he talks about how he doesn't let the media get to him, yet he's blocked almost every Lakers account on Twitter. Like, he's X'd out the community because he doesn't like the criticism. I know sometimes it gets toxic. I understand that. But it's levels to this. And I don't know how much longer D'Angelo Russell fits the picture of a Laker. And I see the videos like him at practice facility with his kid. It's cool, man. Like I say this all the time. I'm gonna use my Darvin Ham line. I'm sure he's a great dad, a great husband, great friend, brother. But right now on the Lakers, he's not contributing enough consistently for us to keep him on this roster for another year. Like, I just don't think we can afford that. I can't fall for the fake news. Last year, I was a big supporter. All right, let's just see it play through. Let's see how D'Lo does throughout the year. I'm in for the long run. But at this point, man, like, he's played too many bad games where I'm like, okay, D'Lo, we seen that one game. We talked about it. It was actually the Grizzlies game, which is funny. I watched D'Angelo Russell look at the dude go get a layup. He just looks at him and was like, oh, like shrugged his shoulder, like literally shrugged his shoulder and game, like, okay, whatever. Boom. Next play, comes up, takes a pull-up 3, misses, gets back in transition, doesn't pick up man. Austin Reeves helps. Then he leaves the man in the corner wide open. Walks away like, oh, well, I guess maybe that's my fault. Continues to make bad play after bad play. A 1-point game turned into a 12-plus point game in less than 2 minutes. So, yeah, right now, like I said, I'm in between. Yes, we're still kind of mid, but for right now, Cam Reddish in the starting lineup is perfect moving forward. And D'Lo has to really mean that he wants to. It's more than just saying he wants to. He'll buy into the role of coming off the bench and he wants to win. You have to play like it. Like, your action have to show that on the court for me.
And your attitude. But I think just the big things here, to address the two things separately, like going back to Alan's question, how do you feel about the Lakers right now this week? 2-2, like he mentioned, since we were last on here. Well, obviously it's a mixed bag. 2-2 actually does indicate that itself, and it's a small sample size, but I was saying, like, as happy as I was with our start when we were 3-0, I remember saying, like, I do need to, like, see a lot more for a longer time to feel good about it. I was like, let's check back in after 10 games or 20 games. And, like, I'm not trying to take credit for anything because that's a really broad take, but I was right, because then Laker Nation kind of switched all their opinions after 10 games only, right? Like, that vibe of 3-0 was gone. And I understand, like, that it's a mixed bag. We'll see what happens. There's a lot we don't know. But if you're trying to, like, look at the positives, D'Angelo had a way better game off the bench, which I was kind of surprised with, because I do think he has a huge ego, and I'll touch more on that in a second. I think Cam Reddish fits the starting lineup way better because it does balance off-ball players with on-ball, and it also balances defense with offense, obviously. I thought, like, there were multiple times in the Lakers' last game against the Sixers where we were like, where's Paul George? Where's Paul George at tonight? And then you kind of remember, like, and that wasn't us, like, hyping up Cam Reddish at the time, but you kind of remember, like, hold on, Cam Reddish can actually guard guys like Paul George, or Cam Reddish could pick up one of their guards who's really good. He's fast enough. He's always been a good defender. So if Cam's offensive game can be decent, let's say his offensive game can be 36 to 40% from three this year, like he's going to have a chance to start the whole year, because with that on offense plus his defense, he does fit a lot of starting lineups. He's not a star, and I don't expect him to be a star, but I kind of did think he was a star in his role when Darvin gave him some opportunities last year. And I saw the stupidest comment, like that's not a word, but in my comment section or whatever on Twitter. And it was like, y'all fried Darvin for starting Cam. I hope you keep that same energy with JJ. And it's like, well, that's the dumbest thing ever, because D'Angelo Russell quit on the team mid-game. He's been horrible all year. And JJ, even as a new coach, had the right sense of mind to say, let's bring in a potential 3-and-D guy, even if it's a little bit of a risk, to the starting lineup, a wing in Reddish, and put D'Lo on the bench that, our bench has no bench scoring, and D'Lo changed that in game one. I thought it was a perfect call. And honestly, if Cam's not amazing tonight or D'Lo's not amazing tonight, I wouldn't change my mind. It would take a very large sample size for me to say that that's a bad call by JJ. The other thing is Cam, you get Cam's confidence up and he goes to the bench when Vando comes back. Great, because Vando can slide right into that Cam role that he's playing right now, and Cam can still have the confidence off the bench. Now, briefly on the other thing with D'Lo, I don't believe that D'Lo doesn't have a huge ego. I've kind of been a D'Lo hater, and I'm also in a different position than a lot of D'Lo haters online, to be honest, because I watched the Lakers when they were horrible every year post Kobe, in the last year of Kobe, and D'Lo was a rookie and D'Lo was a sophomore, and I forgot when he traded him, maybe after the third year they traded him for Brook Lopez. But I watched every D'Lo game. Not only that, especially as Kobe was retiring, D'Lo actually became my favorite Laker. And it wasn't because he was amazing, but it was just because he was this really cool young talent we drafted second overall. I also thought he, in a sense, could like run the whole show on offense at the minimum. And someone mentioned that even at Ohio State, he wasn't thought of to be a defensive liability at the time, because he is 6'5" with a big wingspan, which is good for a point guard, right? So he is my favorite player. But like, honestly, the year he came back, I was okay with him, even though he kind of no-showed in the 2023 playoffs for a few games. But then 2024, the inconsistencies became so clear, and he had an amazing year from 3-point overall. Like, I think he was in the 40s. And he had some really great games leading us. But it's the inconsistencies and also the fact that he's just a one-dimensional player. And then also, like, on offense, if he's not going to have the ball in his hands the whole time, which he shouldn't, then he can't use any of his playmaking skills. That's one of his biggest skills, his passing and his three-point shooting. So I haven't been an advocate for him. He should have been traded at the last trade deadline. He was very hot at the time. We could have got more. They decided to ride with him. Okay, fine. I'm okay with it. We go to the playoffs. We come back this year, and it's just more of the same bullshit. And I, like, genuinely, like, since this is our forum to speak, I think it's fair for me to say I really don't like his attitude, and I haven't for a while now. I don't believe he's a team player. I don't think he's a winning player, to be honest. I don't think he's proven he could be consistent. And when you're getting paid $20 million, that's what makes all those things worse. Because if he was getting paid $3 million, then it's fine. So it's not as bad as Russ, but this is a guy that you do have to trade. Earl said he's our best asset to trade. D'Lo is not an amazing asset, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that, like some Lakers fans have online, to try to hype him up. It's not that he's an amazing asset with his play style. It's the fact that he's a $20 million expiring contract, which could get you one or two solid players that another team, probably a tanking team, is done with. And also the fact that he's a big part of the offense where we don't necessarily have to rebuild. I don't think the Lakers should rebuild mid-year and trade LeBron and AD. but they do need to retool, which is another word people use in that case, to actually have a chance to win the championship. And that's where you look at D'Lo and Gabe's contract, potentially Rui's contract. As much as I love him, he is inconsistent. And then like a JHS or some of the younger guys, like those are the guys who are going to be traded. And I think they really are this year. I would be very surprised if D'Angelo Russell didn't get traded this year, because I think he's made it too obvious on a stubborn Rob Pelinka and stubborn front office that this probably isn't going to work to get you a championship. So that's $20 million in salary that's just going to walk away, or who you're not going to re-sign after this year. Like, thank you, D'Lo, for accepting your option this last summer, 100%. But like at this point, now that he's expiring and there's no shot he's coming back, you need to do something at the deadline so you don't lose him for nothing. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, if I can butt in. Sorry for being late, y'all. I had some technical stuff go down, but it's nice to be here again. When it comes to D'Lo, I feel like even though he did better as a bench player in the recent game than he did as like an actual starter, I feel like that's $20 million of him being who was supposed to be a starting caliber player being docked down to being the bench scorer. And I think it's not just the fact that people are questioning his skill sets and like his inconsistency. It's a lot more deeper than that. It's just the fact that his skills and like his inconsistencies and like the way he presents himself on the court is like a manifestation of, do you even care to win for the team? If you look back on what JJ's quote was when he first addressed why he took out D'Lo, only had him play 20 minutes, he said something about the level of compete and attention to detail. That is attitude, that is behavior, and those are attitudes and behaviors that manifest into actual basketball play. And I think that is the biggest problem with D'Lo, is just that he gives up on the court. That sometimes he just refuses to fight on the court, whether it's tracking back on defense, whether it's being a little bit more creative on the offense. If you can't score, do a little bit more playmaking as the point guard that you are. But it's just the fact that he just kind of gives up and becomes like a ghost on the team. A discouraged D'Lo means you're basically playing with four. And I feel like on top of the fact that we have a bunch of players on our team right now that feel unplayable at times, Gabe Vincent feels unplayable at times. Max Christie, as much as I want to support him so bad this regular season, he's been looking unplayable too. And we thought the same about that until we thought the same about Cam Reddish until he came out and proved himself the last couple of games. And then for Dalton, he's starting to look like the rookie that he actually is. I feel like some people had really high expectations for him, but like he's starting to feel the normal pressure of being a rookie. And like we can't have Dalton be like the sixth man because clearly that's something he's not ready for yet. So I just feel like the fact that we have multiple players that are either severely underperforming or like not being playable at all, like we've been having to make some moves, but it's more important than ever that we do make a move, if not multiple. And for the reasons that like Jake and Earl talked about, D'Lo is our biggest asset. Rui's a pretty big asset, which pains me to say because he's embarrassing me so bad. I genuinely thought he was going to do better under JJ Redick's systems, but he's embarrassing me really bad. But I just think that it's extremely frustrating that we have multiple borderline unplayable members of the team given what their roles are supposed to be. And I feel like D'Lo is just the most frustrating because of behavioral problems, because of just the way he presents himself on the court as just someone who gives up and stops caring about the win.
And if JJ continues to develop his coaching style of, as we've all seen, like he always says big words, which is fine, but attention to phrases, I should say, attention to detail, leadership, execution. He uses every big word, fine. But it does kind of make you think, isn't D'Lo kind of the opposite player of that? Like D'Lo does not really fit all the characteristics that JJ looks for. And the only thing you can say that he is a JJ player is 3-point shooting. So I'll read you a quick stat before we move on to other topics. Here it is, about 3-point shooting. All right. So the Lakers are actually the middle of the pack in terms of 3-point percentage, 35.7. Part of that is LeBron shooting 47, taking some of the most attempts. Rui, who also takes some of the most attempts, is 55.6, which is crazy. And Austin Reeves has now gotten it up to 38. Austin will probably stay around 38 to 40, I would expect, which is great. Here's the problem. AD is 26, slightly a problem. You know, he can't shoot like he used to, whatever. Russell is 30.8. So Russell is 10 points, if not more, lower than what he should be, especially as a starting point guard in the NBA, especially on the Lakers. Unacceptable. Gabriel Vincent, who's one of my least favorite players ever at this point, is shooting 17% from three. As his sole job on offense is to shoot threes, right? No one ever said, Gabe, go attack the basket and throw a lob to Jackson Hayes. Like, no, he's just supposed to shoot threes. He's 17%. Christie's 25. Connect is 27.8. Connect will get up to at least 35 this year. He has less opportunities so far. He's going to be fine. But my thing is, like, if you can replace Russell with a 40% shooter, then you have one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league. And in a league that's so critical, it's something that you have to do, especially with JJ, which kind of gives me more faith that Rob is going to make moves for guys who can actually play and shoot and play some defense.
17% is diabolical. I'm sorry, 17%. You can't give me 20, 25, 17%, and D'Lo 30, bro. 30. What's Bron shooting? Isn't Bron shooting something crazy from three this year? You said it was like 40 something?
Yeah, like 47 or something.
47. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, D'Lo's got to get off my team, bro. 30%, bro. That's crazy. Shout out to Bron though. But yeah, I agree with all you guys. I think it's just, for me, it's just his attitude. You can't stink and make bad plays, and then, like, you can't make mistakes and then not own up to them. Like, I've seen D'Lo give up on games, one possession game. Like, I can't stop thinking about that. That Grizzlies game, it was right like one possession, 1 point. We had the swing, we had the momentum. He makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back-to-back mistakes and did not care. That's the part that makes me mad. He legitimately did not care. And shout out to JJ Redick, man, for benching him. After that, he did not see the rest of the game. He only played like 22 minutes that game, as he should. If you don't care enough to make the small plays, the details, as he said, then you just don't deserve to play by any means. And I think it's not even about being humble coming off the bench. I think this is more so, that's the difference between JJ and Darvin Ham. I think Darvin Ham was like, all right, I just want to try to humble D'Lo, whatever, blah, blah. JJ Redick wants to win. He knows putting Cam Reddish in the starting lineup fixes our defensive problems, which it did. Paul George had a horrible game. And a lot of that was because Cam Reddish was guarding him almost every possession. Only time he ever really scored was when he got switched off of him. Or when Cam Reddish, I think I seen one play where Cam just got completely beat. But that was one play. And after that, didn't happen again. So for me, JJ Redick, difference between JJ and Darvin Ham is JJ Redick is a win-first coach who slightly has his players in mind, but he's not going to put those relationships over the team itself. And I think that's where Darvin Ham struggled. He's like, oh, I got to cater to these guys, Prince, D'Lo, all those guys. Like, it's about feelings. No, JJ Redick, he doesn't care about feelings. He cares about winning. If you can't give him what he wants to win, he's going to put you on the shelf, and he's going to make you learn from your mistakes, and then he'll slowly bring you back into a role that's more comfortable for you and the team based on your effort. And that's where I think people have to appreciate JJ Redick and his coaching style. Like, I know things haven't been perfect. We started off 3-0. It was the high of the high, and now we kind of came down from that. We lost a lot of games we shouldn't have lost. The Pistons game was a huge loss for us. But at the same time, we learned from it. And then the games we lost, obviously, with AD gone, AD came back, played dominant, we won the game. So I think a lot of this more so has to do with roster than it has to do with just JJ as a whole. Like, yes, JJ's made mistakes, but he's learning on the go too. So, yeah. Long story short, D'Lo, he frustrates me because of his lack of effort. I feel like I know that sounds funny. I was looking at this old Darvin Ham quote, which honestly is kind of funny. I have a whole file on my computer called the Darvin Ham X Files, still there from the sad days. But it just This funny quote is, "We'll keep chipping at the rock and we'll break through." And funny enough, I really think that's the story of the season so far. We're going to continue to make mistakes. We're going to keep chipping at that rock, and then eventually, once the right adjustments come, once the right trades come, we're going to break through that rock, and there's going to be a diamond in there. So we ball.
And it's kind of crazy how like Austin Reeves turned into his JJ Redick's ideal point guard. Like Austin Reeves, of course, had point guard experience, but more or less, like Austin Reeves is his ideal guy. Like we've seen some better ball movement versus that Philadelphia 76ers game, and like I said, that's one of the things I harped on in the offseason heading to training camp, and that one of these point guards have to be the archetype that JJ Redick is looking for, like the Chris Pauls, like the Jimmy Nelsons, like the point guards that JJ, of course, played with. And of course, like I said, they're different players, but he needs that defensive first guy. He needs also like a playmaker. He needs, like I said, attention to detail. And JJ Redick knows and has played with point guards who you can kind of say check mark those specific things that he's looking for. So I think it's a short-term fix. We'll see if it turns into a long-term solution. But yeah, like I said, it's on JJ Redick to create the ideal starting lineup, and hopefully the Lakers can execute and get those W's with tonight versus the Toronto Raptors. I know, Jacob, you said there's some other topics that you want to mention?
Oh, I just meant whatever we were going to talk about today. You could go on to the next topic, Alan.
Yeah. Like I said, moving forward, like I said, give a little preview into tonight's game versus the Raptors. We had a close one that wasn't close early beyond, but how's everybody feeling about the Toronto Raptors game? I know RJ Barrett might go off. I think Emmanuel Quickley, who didn't play that game back in Toronto, will be playing tonight. It's sort of a back-to-back for Toronto as well, as they played the LA Clippers last night. So how are you feeling about LA and heading to this game?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I know I wasn't a big fan of the playing a team in like a week or two span. It is a little bit harder as far as like adjustment, especially when you win the first game. But I'm pretty confident going to this game. We gave up that Pistons game. I think Bron, AD, guys like that, Reeves, they're getting a little bit more serious about getting the wins we should be winning. But I can't act like the Raptors aren't playing good basketball. Like, shout out to Grady Dick, shout out to RJ Barrett. They've been playing really great these last couple of weeks. And even the games they're losing, those guys are putting up 25 plus points each. So, and Quickly's back as well. I don't know. I think we just have to watch out for Quickly. We can't let him get going. We know that I forgot who made the joke about whoever, like, when guards see us on the calendar, they're licking their fingers, barbecue chicken style, because they know it's going to be an easy night. Austin Reeves out there, D'Angelo Russell. I feel a little bit better that that my boy Cam Reddish is starting now. That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable as far as maybe helping out a little bit more on those guards. But yeah, I would just say Quickly. I know hasn't played a lot of games. He's been injured. I would hate for him to get into any type of offensive flow. So I think we have to contain him. Everything else, I feel like will work out for itself. And I think it does depend on if Anthony Davis is playing. I know he's probably is playing. I think he's improbable all day, but likely to play. But depends on his level as well. So I'm excited to see what happens. But Raptors, again, we should not lose, and this should continue on our winning streak.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. Realistically, we should be the favorites to win this, and realistically, we did win against them before. However, I believe it was the Raptors game where we were dominating the entire first half and almost blundered the lead in the second half. And that is something that we need to be so careful of. That's actually what got us eliminated from the playoffs last year too. That's something you got to be careful of, is making sure that we maintain form. And it could be a conditioning thing. It's a conditioning thing for one part, and it's just also about not staying stagnant on defense. I feel like there was stagnancy in general during that game, but like we kind of see it the most in the way that the Lakers play defense. And on partially it may be a tactical thing, yes, but I also do think that the Lakers genuinely just have a very low defensive ceiling. Just looking at some of the players that we have, a lot of players that we have struggle on the defense. Obviously, AD, DPOY candidate, elite defender, no doubt. Next in line that's like active, probably Cam Reddish. At least he brings in a really good physicality. He's really good at pressuring the ball. And then after that, it's just kind of like who else can really bring consistent, physical, smart, energetic defense from this team out of the people who are healthy. Because the people that are supposed to help out with that, Max Christie lost his spot in the rotation. Gabe Vincent has been struggling both ways on the field. I feel like he's been not doing as good of a job as he should be, especially with his offensive lackings as well. I feel like Austin Reeves, although he tries, he isn't a high level defender yet. D'Lo gives up on defense. And then like Braun, even though he's like smart on defense, but his physicality is going down with age, and he doesn't fully try sometimes. Like he sometimes will scream for a whistle, not track back when he should be. And that is just an honest thing that Braun does, even though he's one of the smarter defensive guys on our team. So it's just like our defensive ceiling is incredibly low. And I think that is definitely going to be something I'm looking at. It's just like really good perimeter defense because they got a lot of shooters too, Raptors. And a little bit of help in the paint because 80 can't be the only one.
And I think I was in the chat. I'm good. Yeah, I'm just tired as hell. It was a week in Vegas. I'm not stressed. I'm good. No, I think overall, like with this game against the Raptors, I was supposed to go to this game. I think I just like forgot to. It was from someone who had season tickets, and I was like maybe gonna go. I forgot to like organize that. But whatever, we're here. I'm tired, as talked about in the chat anyway, so I'll watch from home. Last time we played them, I felt like, the Raptors, people were like, hey, you guys should blow them out. I don't necessarily expect any game in the NBA to be a blowout. Same thing with the Sixers when we played them. They still had Paul George. They still had guys who could play. Raptors, even if they don't have Scotty Barnes, like they still have Quickly, they still have Barrett, they still have all these other guys. So whatever. I don't think it's the right mentality to expect a blowout in an NBA game. It easily could happen, but it's hard to predict which night. I would say it's better to look at the Lakers, how they're playing tonight, and think, well, what's their mentality look like? What's their aggressiveness look like? What's the vibe of the team just in general? And like, are they executing on things that they should be? And are they shooting well? And that's something we'll see. I think they will. I think the Raptors provide another good chance to go 2 games over 500 again. I know we got back to 4-4. I think we're 5-4 right now. It's another chance to go back to 6-4. I thought the schedule in general seemed fairly weaker this week. I'm trying to find the next game. Well, Grizzlies is Wednesday. Friday is Spurs, though. I don't know. I think, like, let's just stay over 500 for the whole season, though. Like a lot of great teams will. I'll tell you, the Cavs are already going to stay over 500 at the minimum. That's already locked up this year. So I just like the Lakers the last few years have been going back and forth of 500 ever since the Russell Westbrook trade and the 2021-2022 season. So I'd prefer just like to stay over 500. I don't want to go back to it. I think a loss tonight is disastrous, to be honest, but I don't think like not blowing them out is disastrous. Just keep stacking up these wins. Like people were disappointed in the Sixers game, but we did take care of business at the end of the day. And like we got ourselves back over 500. So if we go to 6-4, we can beat the Grizzlies, split the first 2 games with them, essentially go to 7-4 and then play the Spurs with a great chance to go to 8-4. All of a sudden, like we're having very different conversations next week heading into that, Spurs game. I just think like we're all going to be feeling a lot better and they're winnable games. So you can't really take it for granted against the Raptors. Just don't expect a blowout. Just execute on what you have to. They're going to score. Everyone in the NBA can score. Alex mentioned our defense isn't even good. They don't have a high ceiling. I agree with that. I think you're going to need to trade for better defense. It's just not here on the roster. That's fine. But while we are here, like, let's make sure that every guy puts in as much effort as possible. And that's why, like, even D'Lo coming off the bench makes sense again, because you look at their other team and it's like, you could put Reeves on Quickly and be fine, but then you should put Reddish on Barrett. Like, if you have Reeves and Russell and one of them has to guard Barrett, like Reeves, it's going to be really bad. So D'Lo off the bench makes a lot of sense again.
Yeah.
And in the chat, real fast, Alex, sorry. I did get vaccinated a couple years ago. I don't know if I need to do it again. And then Valentine is in February, so I'm going to wait for that one too. But Valanciunas, if that's what you're talking about, I guess makes a little bit of sense from the Wizards.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was a bit confused by the look over there, but hey, shout out to Fireman Dan in the chat. Thank you for answering on that.
Period. We are a health conscious podcast. Just so you know, we are a health conscious podcast. We support vaccines, and we have opinions and maybe some support on the idea of getting Valanciunas as well.
I think tonight's also a must-win, considering our next two games are sort of important. Memphis will be likely missing John Miranda. Game Sky Pittman Jr. will be returning to LA, and I'd imagine he wants to have a good game around that. And also that first San Antonio game on Friday, November 15th, is officially the first NBA, I believe, Emirates Cup game. So that's going to be a very important game. Victor Wembanyama versus AD. So many narratives around that game, and to get a win tonight, heading to those two next games where arguably we can be 3-0, it's going to be a must win for LA. And I think looking at that Toronto Raptors team, I'm looking at Davion Mitchell, from Baylor. He only shot 1 for 5 last game versus the Clippers, but we've seen Jared McCain last game who went off. He shot 4 for 9. He led the team in points with the 18, and Davion Mitchell is a guy who is also a good defensive player. So I don't want to see him having a career night. Chris Boucher, I don't want to see another Busele type of game. He had a great game versus the Clippers. So if we see those two players off the bench have great games, along with the starters, who I imagine will be good, I imagine they're going to be great, but good to say the least. The Lakers have to stay focused. As you say, they got to lock in.
Yeah, shout out to Fireman Dan in the chat. Valanciunas, yeah, for sure. I think that's what you were going for the first couple attempts at that. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think tonight, well, I agree with both of you guys. Y'all both said some good things. I think we have to more focus our win. Like, I want to blow somebody out. Don't get me wrong, but I think at this point we just got to win games. And I think every win we get before we make any type of trade is huge for us. I already think that we're playing, I don't want to say from behind with this type of roster we're running, but we definitely have our hands tied behind our back. We're missing Vando. I still think he's a huge defensive piece that can change a lot for this team. Christian Wood is a really big question mark to me because I have no clue. I have no idea what Christian Wood will bring for us this year. He didn't really have the best impact under Darvin Ham, but then again, a lot of guys didn't either. So I have to wait until I see that. So going into these next couple games, I agree. I think first I'll talk about the Grizzlies game. I'm not worried about the Grizzlies game. I mean, John Morant, you had the guys in the interview talking about old man Bron, like that old man, you ripped the old man. Like, I'm not worried about it. Bron's mad. Bron doesn't forget. People forget. Bron doesn't forget anything, bro. We had Bron on the timeline telling stories about his dream, like step by step, about him playing at Duke and having a concert in the game. Like, Bron, he doesn't forget. He has a memory that's kind of crazy, respectfully. So he's locked in for that game. We didn't have AD, so I'm really not worried about it either. AD is going to drop 45 on Jaren Jackson Fraud's head. No offense. He was taking the worst shots, and they were just going in because he was just throwing it up there because nobody can contest it. If you go back and look at that game, most of his points were just throwing it up there because nobody can guard him. Hopefully, Anthony Davis will be healthy that game. If he is, I have zero worry for that. Scottie Pippen Jr., I do agree. I wish he was still on our team. I hate that Darvin Ham did that. Didn't believe in you, but can't let you go crazy. I'm sorry. D'Lo, you got to lock in. Austin Reeves got to lock in. Cam Reddish got to lock in. He's the guy who's going to be the focal point of the offense with John Morant gone. Last game, he had a triple-double. He played great basketball, so you got to kind of contain it. You have to keep the ball out of his hands, in my opinion, to help him be less impactful on the floor. Other than that, I am excited for the NBA Cup game. we did not we didn't lose a single game, did we? In the NBA Cups, right? Went undefeated, right? Yeah, we went undefeated. So I'm excited for that game. And they had Victor rated above Anthony Davis. Crazy. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Cool. Young talent. He's going to be great. Future league, whatever. But rating him above Anthony Davis at the start of the season is absolutely crazy. Whoever did that, thank you. Because I already know Anthony Davis is going for 45 plus points that game. No doubt in my mind. He's locked in. And last time he played Wemby, he played pretty good. They had some good battles so far. And I remember that crazy corner through that Brian hit over him. Like his first, I think that was a game he came back to too after injury. So that was crazy. So yeah, I'm excited for that game. I know they do have Devin Vassell back. And by then he'll be pretty much warmed up. He played his first game last night. He had 21 points off the bench. So that is a little bit scary. So we'll just have to worry about containing him. But other than that, I'm excited. I'm locked in. I think we can go on a really nice streak moving forward. But we have to win it. We have to win. I don't want to call them the easy games, but we have to win the games that we're supposed to win. And that starts with the Raptors tonight.
No, leave Devin Vassell alone. It's always fuck Jeremy Sohan. Not you, Earl, in the chat, Mal. Jeremy Chan hates LeBron, so he's the ops. Also, by the way, just to add one thing, the Bucks are 2-8.
So I don't think he's playing, so we might be good.
Oh, he's not playing. My fault. The Bucks are 2-8. The Heat are 3-5. The Knicks are 500. The 76ers are 1-7. That's all. Continue.
I got add to real quick. Giannis dropped 42 and then lost. So if everybody's complaining about JJ right now, I don't want to hear it. We're doing good right now, respectfully.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that real quick. To all the people that were non-Lakers fans and even some Lakers fans that called us crazy for saying that Darvin Ham was one of the problems, I hope you're having the day you deserve. Because do you see what's going on with the Doc Rivers, Darvin Ham nightmare blunt rotation of a coaching staff that the Milwaukee Bucks has? Terrible. Exactly. But on the bigger topic of the games that come up after tonight's game, I think that Memphis, we have a realistic shot, especially if AD is healthy, and especially if Rui not only is healthy, but decides to actually play basketball today. Because even though Rui has been extremely inconsistent, it is still the fact that like we were really compromised on size in that Grizzlies game, and because our center depth is like not that great, I think people like Rui, who should have more of an interior presence, and even though his defense is poor, has helped with rebounding, he's kind of like the next up because we don't have that many actual big men. So I think that if AD and Rui come back and both of them decide to actually play basketball, which is a big ask apparently, we should be able to do a lot better. I feel like the Memphis Grizzlies, they take everything personally when it comes to the Lakers. They're saying a lot of smack after the last game. It's always really interesting because at the end of the day, we beat them in the playoffs, so it don't really matter. But it always feels nice to beat them as often as possible, even in the regular season. So I think that hopefully having some size and AD's just like super dominant presence on the court both ways is going to help a lot. And as for the in-season tournament, I low-key forgot that was happening, so thank you, Alan, for bringing that up. I remember we did a ranking of like our group and like trying to rank like 1 through 5, like how would the Lakers round up in this in-season tournament group. And I remember we all put the Lakers very high right now. I just want to ask, like, do you guys like have changed feelings about that? Because I think most of us put them at least number 2 out of 5 in our in-season tournament group. So do you guys feel differently now that we've played 10 games in the season, or not really?
I personally don't have feelings about the in-season tournament at all yet. We'll see. Is this our group? Yeah, that's actually a good thing to see. I mean, we're the 3rd best team in the group as listed by record, literally right there. Because we're not better than the Suns right now. So we're the 3rd best team in the group right now. We'll see. I don't even want to win the in-season tournament. I think I told you guys this summer. I want to win all the games that count for the regular season. but I don't care if we win the in-season tournament.
Yeah, this is a cakewalk. Not worried about any team in this. I mean, Suns, we split that. It is what it is. We haven't played OKC yet, which I'm kind of curious. I feel like playing OKC is definitely gonna not test where. Well, yeah, I'll say that it's gonna kind of test where we kind of are in the Western Conference side of things, because everybody knows. Shout out to the weak East and the Wild Wild West. Everything in the West is competitive. Anything in the East is pretty much barbecue chicken. They don't even have winning records on that side of the bracket. Is absolutely crazy. So no offense. Shout out to Dan. I know the Hawks out there flying in the sky or something like that. But yeah, I think this group is pretty solid. Only team I'm really worried about in this group is OKC. Suns, like I said, we play them all the time and pretty much know what to expect from those guys. And Kevin Durant is injured at the moment. I'm not sure. I know he's out for at least 2 weeks, so I don't even know he'll be playing the time we play him. I'm not sure yet. Jazz, I mean, I'm not gonna waste any words on the Jazz. No offense. The only team I really see, maybe the Spurs, because I can see them using this as a momentum shift to kind of build up their team chemistry. Because I feel like we talked about that before. We initially thought that the in-season tournament was going to be won by a young and hungry team out there who wants to win and who's going to play max minutes and compete hard. That's what we thought. I mean, I don't think we all predicted unbiasedly that the Lakers would win when the whole thing was introduced. I know I didn't. I didn't expect to really compete in that at all. So, yeah, probably the Spurs worry me a little bit just as far as like in-season tournament style. But other than that, Spurs and OKC, I think, like you said, we're top 3 in this bracket for sure.
I'll just add on 2 points, 2 conversations we're having. Number one, Dan in the chat, shout out Dan. When you talk about like preying on your downfall, can't wait to have that high pick. Okay, I understand that. I have no problem with you like rooting against the Lakers to try to get that pick, but I do want you to understand also that there's this fake kind of thought process about the Lakers being bad every time a pick is up for grabs with another team. Like, oh, that Laker pick could be valuable. That's something we hear a lot on Twitter or just online. And to be honest, like that's never come true ever, except for when we got lucky, won the lottery, and actually owned the 4th pick and gave it to the Pelicans, which then they gave to the Hawks. And that was like DeAndre Hunter, I think, was the pick. And if you go back and look at the like Lakers Pelicans trade where we gave them all these valuable picks, 2 of them were Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes. Both not great picks and on the Lakers. The rest of them, all irrelevant. There has not been a Lakers pick in so long that was used on someone good that we traded away. And I think there's this false thing out there. Like, you're not going to get a good pick from the Lakers because you really have to think about it. Like, your best case scenario is pick like 17 like we had last year, but we do expect to be a little better than we were last year in the regular season. So you're not going to get a good pick from the Lakers, and I'm sorry. And then the other thing, like East-West, because Alex commented in the chat too, like Hornets top 4 in the Eastern Conference is frying me so bad. I'm sorry you're fried, Alex. You're right. That's something that I was going to talk about anyway before you wrote that, because like last time when I was speaking for a second, I dropped those records. I didn't finish my point. And my main point there was, well, when you look at the East, the Knicks are the 3rd seed. They're 4-4. The Hornets are the 4th seed at 4-5. It's honestly just disgusting over there. And I'm sure it won't be that bad by the end, but it's bad. And in the West, actually, I don't think the West is as dominant as was advertised. And now with like the DeJounte Murray injury with the Pelicans, with the Zion injury with the Pelicans, I probably could say pretty confidently I don't have the Pelicans as constructed as a playoff team, which removes them because originally I did have them at least in that play-in range. And I also genuinely do think the Warriors start is not indicative of what team they have. So I would also remove them. And at that point, the Lakers do have a decent chance of being the 6th seed. because let's say, and avoiding the play-in, which is a big deal. So I would say like the Thunder, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Grizzlies, and Suns could be above us based on, look, it's really early, but I have them probably above us. The Suns will probably be close to us. And I think we may be able to get the 6 seed more than people realize. The Mavs would be that one that puts us in like the 7 range. So either the Mavs or Suns, being ahead of us or both. And then I'm not worried about the Clippers, the Kings, the Spurs, Pelicans, Trailblazers, Jazz, Warriors. That's 7 teams. So I have us as a top 8 seed again at the minimum, and that's before trades. So like long-term view right now, I actually do feel pretty optimistic.
Certainly, indeed. Let's move forward to one of our other topics right now is for the Lakers. It's about these. Anthony Davis is a front runner for MVP. As right now, in terms of NBA.com, one of the writers has him as number 1. Behind him is Jason 2, and number 3 is Nikola Jokic. So, at least as I put that on screen, what's everybody's thoughts on AD being number 1? According to that writer, of course, everybody has their different opinions, but AD is number 1 as of right now.
I guess I'll start. I will happily take AD at number 1. I am really happy about it. I was actually researching this for an article that I was writing. If you're in the Playoff Sports Network stream, you kind of heard me talk about it a bit, but I think AD is sick and tired of being acknowledged but underappreciated, quite frankly. I feel like straight away from media day, when asked about what parts of his defensive game is underappreciated, he said all of it. Like, he's sick of it from the very get-go. And I think that AD has done pretty much everything right as an individual player. He's leading in points. He is in the top 10 for rebounds and blocks, I believe, per game. And it just shows what he's able to do on both ends of the court. And I genuinely think that he's had the best start to the season. And it makes sense that he is the early favorite. I feel like there's only 2 things that can really stand in the way of him getting that. Number 1, and this is something that Jake actually brought up in some of our watch parties, is that how much does team performance really matter? Because in some cases it does, some cases it doesn't. It really depends on who's voting, but it's undeniable that the Lakers, if they underperform, that it will kind of affect the way people view the players, including Anthony Davis himself. So that is one thing. And I think another thing is that everyone's going to say health, and I think that's going to be the second thing. He kept himself healthy. He's shown himself to be able to keep himself healthy last season, playing 76 games, but he has that heel contusion, and he's most likely going to have to play on it until some trade is made or some sort of big man or some sort of help is provided to the team. So it's just really a matter of like, how much can the body take? And like, when I say that physical health is an obstacle, I'm not saying that because I believe in the Anthony Davis's fragile narratives, not at all. I'm saying that health is a problem because the Lakers have not done a good job of protecting him and actually getting him the help he needed when the team knew that he had health problems during the offseason. So I'm just really happy with the fact that Anthony Davis is on top. I think he deserves it 100%. He is being so loud and bold about the fact that he's tired of being underappreciated, and I am here for it 100%. We just got to hope that the rest of the season goes his way as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like LeBron here. I already knew this was gonna happen. I predicted this last year, but in reality, over the summer when we had conversations about expectations for the upcoming season, I did have Anthony Davis competing for MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Did I think MVP would happen like this, like when he's locked in from the jump? I don't know. I know I talk a lot of positivity. It's not every day that it comes to fruition. So shout out to AD, 32.6, 11.6 rebounds, 1.7 blocks per game. He's balling. And like you said, Anthony Davis this year looks like the first option on the Los Angeles Lakers. He's taking the majority of the shots. He's not I think we talked about one thing I noticed that JJ Redick said going into the season was he wanted to make Anthony Davis the hub on offense and defense. And I'm seeing that a lot more. Like he's being like kind of forced to put Bron is forcing him to be aggressive on offense. Like if Anthony Davis passed the ball out, Bron will pass it back into him to make some type of play. And I like that for Anthony Davis. I mean, it's not he makes scoring 32 easy. And we talked about the biggest reason why he wasn't scoring this last year was the second halves have been awful. He'll just shy away from the ball. He doesn't get it at all, and he's not as impactful in that second half. But now this year, he's having like 18, 20 at halftime. And then once he gets to the second half, it's easy. Like there's been plenty of opportunities where he could have 40 plus points in games, but he just missed the shots. Now he's taking like 20 plus shots. We used to pray for Anthony Davis to put up 20 shots when he was putting up like 12, 14, maybe 17 to 18 at times. We're like, come on, bro. There's no way Anthony Davis isn't taking the most or at least 20 shots a game. And now he is, and he's reaping the benefits of it, and we are as a team as well. So I'm confident, man. If I was a GM, I'm telling you, if I'm seeing my star player, Anthony Davis, scoring 32 points a game, LeBron James getting triple doubles, shooting 47% from three, how do you not make the moves to turn this team into a competitor when you're a couple away? Like that's the one thing I just don't get about Rob Pelinka. His sense of urgency is just not there. Like if I seen old man Bron was doing this type of production and Anthony Davis actually showing up, being healthy, being aggressive on both ends of the floor, and they're giving you everything. And the biggest problem is your role players not producing. You have one of the worst three-point shooting, hands down, from top to bottom of your roster. I'm making some type of changes to fix that early into the season. So that way you have time for guys to kind of get acclimated together and build that chemistry rather than doing it at the trade deadline and trying to figure it out right before the playoffs happen. So that's the one thing I think we can all agree that Rob Pelinka has been very stagnant these last year and a half. And I get it. I see the arguments that, hey, you can't be a buyer if there's nothing for sale on the market. I get that. But at the same time, sometimes you got to do a little bit of house calling. Sometimes you got to go do a little bit of extra work. Maybe there's not a listing on sale, but you go make a couple calls, make a couple arrangements, and work on something yourself. And I think that's what Rob Pelinka has to do. And he sold himself short. That's how we got Rui Hachimura. None of us thought we were getting Rui. It came out of nowhere. It came out of just Rob Pelinka just making random moves. And he has to get back to that. Like, I don't know what to say. If I seen this 32 and 11 points per game like 2 years ago, you're telling me AD's putting up these numbers? We're the number one seed, and we probably lost one game, maybe two. So I don't know. Rob Pelinka just has a lot to think about, and I think he's just not taking enough action for me so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should take a lot more action. Anthony Davis is one of my favorite players. I think he's been the best player in the NBA this year. I think Jokic is right there with him, though. I also think the Lakers are not going to be a top 4 seed. I think that's fair unless drastic changes happen. So I don't think there's any chance Anthony Davis can win MVP. I know the whole MVP ladder right now is just based on this really small sample size. And it's not that I don't believe that his play will continue. It's just like I say every other year that MVP has to mean something and be like the best player on either the best team or one of the best teams. Like if Shea is the best player on a 1 seed, but Jokic is way better on a 2 or 3 seed, then Jokic deserves it. That actually did happen, by the way, last year. But Anthony Davis being on probably a 5th or 6th seed, and that's best case scenario, I just can't see how he would deserve it more than either Luka, Shea, Jokic, not to mention the Eastern Conference too. Who knows what will happen? I don't know who it would even be. But the West is better, and with AD, it's like team success has to matter, and he does so much for this team. He may do more for this team than Jokic does for the Nuggets so far, but the rest of the team has to play well because we're just not giving it to a 15 seed. We're not giving it to a 10 seed, and we're probably not giving it to a 5th seed. And we did once. We let a narrative trick us into giving, in my opinion, this is my opinion. A lot of people will say it's deserved. I don't know if you know what I'm going to say. we let a narrative trick us into giving Russell Westbrook MVP because Kevin, as good as he was, Kevin Durant had left, and it was like the rush show, and it is what it is. And I do think he was top 3 in MVP, no matter how you want to spin it that year. So it's not like that was a horrible process, but the Thunder were, I think, the 5th seed and got eliminated in round 1. So I don't love that kind of stuff. And Jokic and them also did get eliminated in the second round last year, but they were the 2 seed. And I feel like that's justifiable. It's a regular season award at the end of the day, but we let the narratives kind of take control. And frankly, like, you're not going to get that narrative in your favor if you're on the Lakers. The Lakers have one MVP since Shaq, and it was 2000, I want to say 6 when Kobe won it, around there. And Kobe is a top 10 player ever. A lot of people say top 5, and he only had 1 MVP. So how the hell would we give it to Anthony Davis, who's worse than Kobe, when our team isn't going to be that good? But if we somehow find a way to be a top 4 seed, I think he has a really good chance to win it. And if we're like a top 2 seed, I would put him as the favorite for it.
And it sort of brings up a question like, will team success, like I said, the Lakers are 5-4 right now, will that impact AD's standings? Like, of course, we talk about Russ and everybody else winning MVP, even though they weren't the best overall team in the NBA. But will that impact Anthony Davis and the narratives that go along with it?
But also, just real quick, in the chat with D Rose, I do think that's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying, though, because he was the best player on the best team in the East. And listen, he was worse than LeBron James at basketball, but weren't the Bulls the 1 seed that season? I'm like 90% sure they were.
Yeah, I think that team performance will have some sort of impact whether we want it to or not. It genuinely does depend on the voter, but it does come down to the fact that some people are going to think, oh, well, Anthony Davis is performing well, but he's not carrying the team. They're not going to consider context or factors as much. They might be looking at some stats and being like, oh, well, Anthony Davis is this great defender, but like, why are the Lakers 29th in defensive rating? Like, things like that. And whether we agree or disagree with that, I think it is definitely going to be a thing that the Lakers team performance will matter when it comes to an MVP campaign, especially for Anthony Davis. I also think that the media already puts a lot of narratives on Anthony Davis in general. People like to kind of watch Anthony Davis as well as other players of his caliber with like a really, really, really picky microscope. One of the narratives I talked about was like him being fragile or just whatever his physical health conditions are. So I think that the fact that a lot of media personnel already do put narratives on Anthony Davis, on top of the fact that they can make any sort of like justification or reasoning based on how the team performance does. So I think in a way, whether we agree with it or not, the team performance will probably affect Anthony Davis's campaign.
But I do agree with it. Like, even though I love AD, I definitely do agree with it that it should. I mean, I could be biased and say AD deserves it because he's on my favorite team. But if it were another team, let's say like I was a fan of like the Pelicans and they got the 7th seed and Zion had AD's line, like I would not be like Zion should be MVP. So it is going to depend on the performance. But I wanted to shout out 2 things real fast before we move on. Legion Hoops, a big account that posts stats and other stuff on Twitter for basketball, like posted Bronny's G League debut stat line, which, by the way, like Bronny was horrible. I'm sorry to say this because I do really like him and it is going to take time, but he was really bad, dude. Like I've watched Bronny for, as a lot of us have, for high school. We've all seen even some middle school clips, at least high school, college, preseason, summer league, G League, not judging his Lakers performances because they were like a minute or 2 long. But Bronny had a certain stat line, and the quote tweet of that is one of the funniest tweets I've seen. I don't know if you guys saw it. It says, in quotes, on the 6th day of Christmas as stat line, because the song where it's like, on the 6th day of Christmas, my mother gave to me, and then it's like one thing, two thing, three, whatever. Bronny had 6 points, 5 turnovers, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block in order, like going down. That's how they listed it. So I thought that quote tweet was awesome. But Bronny also, how the hell do you have 5 turnovers in the G League and shoot 2 for 10? I'm sorry, dude. Like, I know not every game is great. The problem is like this is 90% of Bronny games. Like, when I said I saw him at every level, I've never seen him drop 20. I've never seen him drop 20 until he had one game with the Lakers that was either in the preseason, right? That was either like 20 or 15 or something. That was the first time I had seen that. And I just don't expect a lot of things, even in the G League, which is sad. On the other topic, I saw a tweet from our own Alex where Trevor Lane said Lakers recalled Bronny, JHS, and Maxwell Lewis. I do think they just do that to be at the end of the bench in case it's a blowout. Those guys can like play and all that. And Alex said Quincy Olivari, I'm so sorry. My 2 things on that is Alex, I think the reason he wasn't included is because he's on a 2-way and they were talking about standard contract players, which Bronny, JHS, and Maxwell Lewis are not on 2-ways. But also, Alex, you make a really good point, and I know it was supposed to be a little funny, but I was thinking like Quincy is better than some of the guys, like more talented and works harder than some of the guys on the Lakers. Like, I don't see that there's much to lose. For example, if you call up Quincy and you say, all right, you're the backup point guard now, and if he plays at least decently well, he can hold that spot for years, and he's under team control, and he's young, and he doesn't have a real contract. He's on a 2-way. So thank you for kind of reminding me, because we hadn't talked about that on the show. But I do kind of think Quincy should be on the real Lakers for a majority of the time, because even if that, with the 2-way, how you can only play a certain amount of NBA games, even if that expires, like, I wouldn't hate signing Quincy on a standardized minimum deal. And at that point, like later in the season in February, maybe you can cut Jackson or Cam, probably not Cam anymore, but one of the guys like you would cut or trade, JHS, Maxwell Lewis, whatever, and give that spot to Quincy. And you can keep Gabe on the team if you want. But if Gabe keeps playing bad, he shouldn't be the backup point guard on the Lakers. And if Quincy plays well, he could just keep that spot. And if Gabe starts to be better, he could go ahead of Quincy for all we care. But it kind of gives you like another option off the bench there, because you can recall Bronny and JHS and Maxwell Lewis all you want. All 3 of them would be horrible in an NBA game in the second quarter right now. Quincy does not fall in that category to me, and he's more advanced.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think Quincy, the one thing I would just hate to see is a situation where we let him fall through to another NBA team. Let's just say like the Golden State Warriors. I mean, we already know he has that connection or respect for Stephen Curry, and them getting their hands on a 3-point shooter like that, especially how young he is, and pretty much like, I don't want to say like raw, because he's a lot more talented than a lot of other guys we've had in our process. I just don't want things to happen like the Jay Huff situation or the Scottie Pippen Jr. situation. And maybe this is one of those things where they're trying to slow track it and maybe bring him up slowly starting next year, maybe. And have like a similar Austin Reeves or Max Christie type of roll off where they come in, they give them a little bit of experimental minutes to start the season and see how they go from there and work them into the lineup like that. But I do agree with you. There is a world where you can bring them in and just throw them into the fire and see what happens. JJ Redick talks about wanting offensive firepower. He wants to play around that 3-point line. Well, Quincy Olivari, he provides all that for you. Good playmaker as well. I think he had 10 rebounds in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it 10 assists? I forget. 11. Wow. See? He's balling. Like, those are the type of qualities, those type of extra plays we need from our guard position. So, I don't know. I think it definitely is interesting when you mention it. And the Bronny thing, when we drafted him, I really didn't have much expectations of him being great this year. I do agree that first performance was really bad. I'd be more concerned if I see this for a period of like 5 or 6 games where it's like, okay, this is the same exact thing where we're just getting 5 points, 5 turnovers, low, really, really low production in the G League, pretty much not great at all. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now, but I am going to hold him to the same standard as we hold all our Lakers players to. So if he's playing bad, we'll talk about how bad he's playing. I agree. That game last night, it was kind of awful. I don't know if it's confidence still, rhythm, but 5 turnovers. I mean, he's one part of his one part of his game he's taking from his dad that we probably don't want to see on the real Lakers is those horrible turnovers. So I agree with you on that, Jake.
I'll very much describe it as like, because I watched the game, like check out some highlights and see like how our players will look. But I'll describe Bronny's performance as what we saw from the summer league, but a little just amplified a bit. So it's like he good playmaker, had some defensive awareness, had some good touches. Obviously, his 3-point shot didn't fall in. His shot, of course, he shot, was it like 2 for 10 overall? So, and of course, like I said, the 5 turnovers. So very much saw his summer league performance, but a little bit amplified. So if you're wanting to see progression in terms of Bronny, you should be worried. But if you're not expecting too much and just want to watch Bronny as a player and see how he is currently, then yeah, I'll say it's the same thing from what we saw in the summer league about that. Before we go on to our tier list for the Lakers roster, is there any more topics before we go to that?
I guess I can just like touch on my point on Bronny and Quincy, since I was the one that is like slowly becoming the Quincy Oliveri truther. I think when it comes to Quincy, first of all, I do understand that he probably didn't get called up because he's a two-way player, and all those guys that got called up are standard contract players, and Maxwell had a really strong game in South Bay as well. So I kind of get that, even though all three of them kind of had a chance to show what they do on the NBA level and failed, especially our sophomores. I just think that for Quincy, whether they decide to put him in later and like take his development slowly, or whether they decide to put him in now, seeing that our backcourt is really lacking in a certain firepower that Quincy knows how to bring, at least to a certain level. So no matter how fast or slow that they take on his development, I genuinely think that Quincy Oliveri should get the chance. Do I expect him to drop 28 and 6 assists and like 10, 11 rebounds in like the NBA regular season? No. But he showed some sort of that he can be somewhat efficient. He shows that he can be an energy guy off the bench, no matter how far into the bench he is. He puts in way more defensive effort than D'Lo ever will. And like, I'd be interested to see how his defensive energy will compare to even Gabe Vincent, who's been a struggle all season. So I genuinely think that no matter how fast or slow they take the development, I genuinely think that he does deserve the chance, because I think I think he can put up, like, as long as he can put up like an efficient like 5-ish points or something, because he's probably going to be a third string guy. I just want to see what he's able to do. And even if it ends up being a fluke, you can just bring him back to South Bay. I think it's still worth the try, especially given that we have some compromises in our backcourt from starter all the way down to like the second and third string of point guards. I just think that even if it doesn't go well, no matter how long it takes for them to develop, I think that Quincy does deserve some sort of a chance when the time is right to show himself. And then as for Bronny, I really hope one day that he can play well. I just don't think he's ready. I think he should have spent some more time in college. I think that he shouldn't have been put on like a standard contract. And I understand that there's a lot that happened, especially with his time at USC. I'm just glad that he's back to being healthy and like playing well, and it's a miracle that he is. And as the 55th pick, I don't expect much from him. I just think that the spotlight that's being put on him is forcing him to develop faster, to be put on a developmental track that's faster than what he should be taking. And I think that I did watch a little bit of the South Bay game. It was literally on Tubi, so any of us could have watched it. Bronny did seem to struggle, especially in terms of turnovers. And there's some things he did that like a good basketball player does, but the turnovers was certainly like certainly stuck out like a sore thumb. So I just think that I'm saying it a lot less bluntly than I think Jake was a lot more like blunt and straight up. I'm trying to be like nice and forgiving about it. I just don't think that he's on a developmental path that he's not supposed to be on. It's kind of like when you get put in like the AP calculus class, but you scored like 65-70% in your math class before that. Like you should not be doing AP Calc. That's kind of how I feel about Bronny's developmental path. He has really decent traits to be a good basketball player. It's just he's just not there yet, and people are forcing him to be.
Well, Bronny is kind of like if you took a middle school player who's like decent for their age and put him on high school varsity. And it's also just with a closer example, it's kind of like if you said, Gabe Vincent, you're going to be our LeBron this game. And in another example, if those two didn't resonate, it's also kind of like the conversations people used to have, like if there was a great Kentucky or Duke team, could they take the 24 Celtics? And Bronny's kind of like your answer to all of those, because it turns out like it is really hard to be in the NBA because you do have to think about like the level Bronny's on. Like I played some basketball in high school. I didn't play when I was older. I wasn't on varsity. And then those guys were like way better than me, right? And then the best people on on our teams for our high school, they didn't go far in college. They didn't play. Maybe one person's a walk-on. And then so now you're at that walk-on tier. Then there's another tier of college role player, which Bronny was in. Then there's the stars of the college, and then so on and so on. And you go up to the highest level, right? And it's like, my point in saying that is, well, Bronny wasn't a very good college player because of his heart attack. And at least I'm honest about that. And I don't act like, oh, he just sucks. Like, and it's not that simple. It's really not. He missed a lot of time and important training. But I do think all of us on this podcast felt two ways. We all love the Lakers and said if we get Bronny, we'll be happy. It's fine. It's a 55th pick. It's LeBron's son. I still agree with that. But we also did say before the draft, before he declared, I should say, Bronny should stay another year in college and then come to the Lakers. We all said that. And we all have slightly different views on the team. So that didn't happen. And now we're seeing like the results of this. I would say that he's not going to be one of the better players in the G League. I think that's very fair. I think the G League is also very high level. Imagine like the Fred VanVleets of the world or the Alex Carusos who actually end up good in the NBA who are down there in the G League. Like Bronny's not even on that path. So he's on a like different path than that. And I think it's going to take a lot of time. If I were the Lakers, looking back, I would have never signed him to a standard deal. I think that's wrong. I think I'm finally ready to and it's so early in his journey, but I think I'm ready to admit, like, why did we do that? Like that's only to keep LeBron happy. There's not another reason, because we were kind of stingy with Olivari, for example, where like he was clearly really good in the preseason. And then we decided last minute, okay, we'll give you a two-way. And we were like stingy with that. But then with Bronny, it was like, yeah, you're a standardized guy. I mean, I got Quincy like 2 or 3 levels over Bronny. I think a lot of big Lakers fans would agree with that right now. So like, why would Bronny be on the regular, like take up a literal roster spot on the Lakers and make $8 million? The money's not even as much of an issue as like, do your thing in the G League, but like kind of stop calling him up in a sense. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's not right. Like if he can't play in the G League, he can't play in the NBA. So let's let him prove he can play in the G League. And I root for him hard. And I know I'm being blunt, Alex, as well. Like you're right. But I don't understand why he can't just stay in the G League all year. And if anything, like this would be a bad look at this point. It probably won't happen. But I would say he almost like kind of should lose his roster spot on a standard thing. like he should be cut, but it would be a really bad look and a PR thing. That's the problem. But like in a sense with just basketball, if he were anyone else, he wouldn't have got that deal. And I kind of do think he should be cut and put on a two-way, and then maybe you take one of the two ways and give him Bronny's, like flip-flop it, just to make it easier with like the limits to what two-way guys can play. And Bronny should be in the G League the entire year and not just this year. I think Bronny needs this year and next year, and then maybe we can talk about him being the end of the bench. That's where I'm at right now. I think that's fair, but I also love the kid and I like his mentality a lot. I'm kind of yet to see him have a good game at any level of basketball in the way that he would need to make the NBA. And it's not about scoring 20 points. It's about maybe not having 5 turnovers or not shooting 2 of 10. And that's something we haven't seen. Even his game with the Lakers in Golden State, where he had a lot of points, his shooting percentage was actually really bad. And he made a lot of mistakes, which is understandable. But then just go to the G League and we'll call him up when he's ready.
Yeah, I think I'll add on to that real quick. I genuinely do believe that Bronny is on this accelerated developmental path that I think Quincy Oliveri is a little bit more ready to take on. I think that from the very beginning, it was emphasized that Bronny's first season in the NBA or the first season in G League or whatever was going to be a developmental time. And I feel like I wish the Lakers were a little bit more honest in the type of development that he needs. Because I think I 100% agree with Jake, even though like I like how straightforward that his delivery is compared to mine. I'm just trying to be I'm always like that type of like I want to root for players, but I do like the people that are very straightforward like that. So that's something I respect. I think it's just most frustrating, like you said, that he got put on that standard contract. So that gives a little bit less wiggle room for how he can develop in the G League. And you see how he's being managed right now. He's going back and forth between the Lakers and the South Bay and the LA and the South Bay. And he's like only playing certain home games for South Bay, not away games. And there are like certain reports about that. How is he going to develop the concept of team chemistry on a higher level if he's not sticking with the G League? I feel like that's one of the things that he definitely needs to learn, and especially considering that we're kind of seeing the levels that he's on. I think Jake also brought up a pretty interesting point about like how there's just like different tiers from like star high schooler to like college role player to like star college player to like role NBA player, and like how all of those are just like tiers of their own. If I remember correctly, Quincy Oliveri was balling out for Xavier basketball. Like he was one of the like Bronny was like the role player in his 1 year of college. Obviously he had like medical circumstances, and it's amazing that he's even able to play. But like Quincy is on that different tier of like he knew how to dominate for his team. Dalton was also in that caliber where he knew how to dominate for his team in Tennessee, which is where he played his senior year. So I just think that it's the fact that we all want to support Bronny so bad, but there isn't as much transparency from the teams and the people around him as we as fans believe there should be.
Can I just wrap up on that? I feel like we're having a little back and forth, not debate, but we're like adding to each other's points, and then I'll let you boys go again. I'm sorry. But just to add to that was something like progressive in this conversation, and you brought up Dalton too. Like, I do think Dalton will be okay and he'll be good. He's had a rough start. But like, remember the first game when he literally dropped only like 5 points, and it was kind of still somehow a big swing in that Timberwolves game to keep the lead around 10, I want to say, with that 3 and that transition play between him and Reeves. Like, if Quincy can come up and impact the game in any way like that, even if it's 5 points, and then play league average defense, then wouldn't you prefer that over Gabe? Like, it's kind of weird because like Dalton can have a big impact on the Lakers, and I do kind of think Quincy also can. In the middle of the second quarter, when things lull out, the energy he brings and the aggressiveness and just like the will to win. And that was proven correct. When I'll add, like, I watched the South Bay game. That's why I feel like I'm qualified to speak on this on Tubi last night. And he just like, he's better than most of the guys in the G League on day one in the G League. Day one. So I think a lot of teams' scouting departments messed up, and it's a gem. But I'm apprehensive because, as you guys know, like there'll be the Demoy Hodges of the world, the Maxwell Lewis, the JHS, the Castleton, Jay Huff, Scottie Pippen, David Nawaba a long time ago, guys like that we've had kind of in this back and forth, maybe two-way or just transitioning, and we do let them slip to other teams. I think he's under our control, being that it's a two-way. I don't know if you can even get out of that to sign a standard deal, maybe, but like he's going to go after the season and have a chance to be a great NBA role player if you don't give him a chance. And with our bench issues, I feel like why not give a chance to the best player on the developmental team? Because when you call up Bronny, JHS, and Lewis to play the last 2 minutes of a blowout, sure, that's kind of okay. But like, I'd rather one of the spots of someone who's active for that game be able to help out with winning if we need it. And go back and look at the preseason. A lot of the time when Quincy was hooping, it was against NBA guys. It may not have been against the best NBA guys, but it was against NBA guys. So we know he can do that now. And if I'm the Lakers, I don't let another opportunity pass, because you guys can all see, like I can, in 2 years, if Quincy goes to another team and starts balling even as a bench point guard, who does that remind you of right now that we had 2 years ago? Scottie Pippen Jr., like I saw in the chat. So why would we let another opportunity to pass us by on, let's say his spot is Gabe Vincent's spot? Like, until Gabe proves something, take this opportunity you were given by finding an undrafted rookie who's ready to be an NBA player right now. That's my pitch to the Lakers.
Now forward to our tier list for this Lakers roster after 9 games. Of course, we'll start off with Earl for this one before he heads out. And there we go. So,
Yes,
Earl.
sir. All right. You know what? Why mix it up this week? Let me get I'll start with, you know what? Let's do D'Angelo Russell. Let's go D-Lo. Little D-Lo. Can you remind me what he was last week? Because I think he was on D last week, if I'm not mistaken.
He was on D.
Okay. I don't think he got any better, bro. I think I'm gonna start D-Lo at D. No pun intended, but it's always a pun intended, because that's really where he's gonna be for a lot of the season until he learns how to play team ball again, which I don't know. At this point, just watching the way he gave up on the team during that critical couple possessions in that Grizzlies game, really made me disappointed in him, period. Like, it's a different thing if you're just missing open shots. Like, I get it, you're not going to make every shot, but when you give up on defense as well, or you're taking a step back contested 3 over Jay Huff, when you know you don't have kind of the advantage as far as maybe he could have made it, yes, but it's not like Jay Huff winning where he didn't go for the fake. So at that point, you got to pass it out. He gets blocked, gives over easy transition bucket. I think that game alone kind of messed it up. Even before that, he was playing bad, giving up a lot of easy buckets and just not making critical shots for us. He hasn't been consistent at all. So I think for me, I'm keeping him at D. If there was a lower tier, I'll probably maybe put him a little bit lower, respectfully. But yeah, for me, I'll start with D-Lo, and he's at D for me.
Oh, and I think if we put him at C, we would be tricked by that one last game where he was good. Like, I do want to acknowledge that, but we're talking about a week span where he was awful until one game. So I think we got to leave him at D. But if, let's say, he had 2 great games this week and 1 bad game, I would put him at C.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good with D'Lo at D. I think the fact that he had to get demoted from starter to bench and like because he had a whole week of just really poor performances, both in terms of skill and in terms of just like mentality as well. I think even if he had one good game off the bench, he deserves that low ranking. Also, who wants to go next? Does Jake want to go? Does Alan want to go? Should I go?
You could go.
I'm gonna have to be very honest about the player that I vouched for at the beginning of the season, Mr. Rui Hachimura. I have the list pulled up on my phone. He was at a low B tier. I might have to demote him even lower to like high to mid C tier. I feel like it's not only was he losing his like shooting efficiency, it doesn't help that he was sick for one game either. His defense just continues to be a liability in my opinion. I think one of the reasons that we kind of struggle with interior defense is number one, obviously we lack center depth. I think that is undeniable that when we go from Anthony Davis to Jackson Hayes, that is a huge major drop off. But I think we also need people who are big enough to at least play as a help in the interior defense as well. And I feel like Rui's supposed to do that because he's literally 6'8", 6'9". He has muscle mass on him, but like he doesn't box out all the time. He doesn't. He's not physical enough. He's not physical enough. He's not fast enough. He's not strong enough when he's doing that. And I think it's really frustrating that his defense just completely overshadows even the little bit of good that he did. Yeah, and like I said earlier, and I think his rebounding is falling off a little bit. Like he's at around 4 to 5 rebounds when like in the beginning of the season he was easily like 6, 7. He even had a 10 rebound game. And one of the reasons why I wanted to rate Rui high was I thought that he was improving on his rebounding game. But the recent stretch feels like a slight drop off there too. So I think major drop off in shooting efficiencies, slight drop off in rebounding, and just like consistently poor defense. I'm gonna demote Rui to like C. I fear, and I really vouched for him too. But I want to know what you guys think.
I'm with you. I think he's gonna be around B a lot of the year. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe we'll trade him. I'm not sure. It's a list that has to update week to week. That's the whole point of this. If we're not honest about the last week, then we're not doing our job right. I would like to keep him in B because of games he had this season that were great early on. But like for all the reasons you said, I'm going to agree. And I think I would say the top of C. Not that we have anyone else there yet, but the top of C.
Now, if you're speaking overall season, I very much agree with you guys. C is ideal. But if we're speaking of the now, I put him top of D ahead of D'Angelo Russell. Just because, like, yes, D'Angelo Russell, of course, scored 18 points. But, like, Rui overall has been better. But, like I said, his performance is not good. Like, 9 points, 8 points, 9 points, almost, like, 5 and below in terms of rebounding. Like I said, like Alex said, his shooting efficiency is not that great. So if we're, that's just me. I'm being really honest, but I think that C is ideal, but D deserves to be argument for Rui.
Alan, I'll tell you why he should be, and you can turn your mic on, Alex. You could be a part of this. I'll tell you why he should be C, because the way I view the list, and you're right, this week he's D, right? But the thing is, even though it is about the week, it has to update based on the rankings so far that are prior. So the one consideration we can take is taking Rui, like knowing that he was B and A previously, puts him in the C now, versus if D'Lo was D previously and had a few good games, he could be bumped up to C. So I wouldn't put a player lower, 2 tiers lower, unless they literally became like the worst player ever, if that makes sense. Like a D'Angelo Russell situation.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of put it in the chat. I think the only reason why I didn't want to say D, even though his recent week was disgustingly bad, was because like I feel like D tier players are just like fully unplayable. Like I'm looking at some of the players that are on D tier last year. It's the people who I worried about being unplayable that I talked about early in the stream. It was Gabe, it was Max Christie, and those are the people who I'm just like, we cannot have them play, period. I feel like and I also think it is because I'm like thinking about the whole season plus this week, not just this week, like Alan said. But I think if it was just this week, then like low seeded D is understandable. I just think it's a matter of like, are we looking at it throughout the whole season, and also how serious is the D tier? Because I feel like the D tiers that I've been seeing in our list are just like fully unplayable players.
Well, that and D'Lo, which like I wouldn't say he's unplayable, but you got to compare the player to themselves. And honestly, maybe at some point we'll make clear guidelines to this. I feel like all four of us have generally been on the same page overall, though. Like when we've done it, I just think you got to compare D'Lo to what D'Lo should be for this team, or Rui to what Rui should be. So, like for example, Rui should be B or A, but because he had a D week, he's now C. That's how I'm looking at it. I guess I didn't even pick one yet. What's the bottom one say, Alan?
So the rankings are S, A, B, C, D, injured or limited minutes, and then the bottom one with all those players is South Bay Lakers. So just players.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. I think that probably is a fair tier, actually, and I don't know if we even would want to move anyone on that, because it would be hard to say again, like, hey, Bronny, you're a D, buddy, because of that 1 minute you played in the last game. Like, nah, he's in that tier. I considered saying Koloko and D before I saw that tier, but I also do think that's unfair. We'll see what happens if he gets opportunity. He did in one game, but AD was also out, so I could see Koloko not getting opportunity a lot of game. I'll take Cam Reddish, and I kind of want to put Cam Reddish in B tier. And my logic is, to start the season, he wasn't in any tier because he was injured. Then he barely got, more than 5 minutes. And it would have kind of been unfair to put him in any decent tier. But the thing is, like, Cam Reddish compared to Cam Reddish was the Cam Reddish that we needed defensively the last few games and offensively last game. So what I would do is put Cam in B, and then if, for example, he was like kind of got worse the next few games, I'd move him to C. But I think he's one of the controversial ones where I would need your guys' input, and we'll probably have to average it out.
I'm like thinking, but I definitely understand your logic on that. I definitely not D. I think that I would feel bad if I'm below Rui after this week as well. So I think I understand that too. I think mid to low B makes sense for Cam. I think he had just like 2 full games to show, 2 games as an actual rotation player to show his opportunity, but it's also the fact that in this week that we're evaluating, he earned his spot in the rotation as well. I think it's just the fact that he indeed made a positive impact on the team, and that is in the ways that Cam does as a defender, and he wasn't too bad on the offense either. I think that whether he becomes completely unplayable on offense despite his defense or not is going to determine if he falls or not after we put him in a certain tier. But I think for now, he's been playable on offense, brought really great physicality to the defense. He did the work of earning his spot in the rotation, at least for now. I am okay with a B tier, but I want to hear from Alan too.
I'd say overall impact, it's a B. Like, guarding Paul George and only allowing him 9 points, was it like 0 for 6 from 3? Like, just an overall bad game, deservingly should be B. There's arguments all around. You can maybe say he's a C, and maybe moving forward he may stay in a C, just because, like I said, we talked about earlier back in this podcast how this could be a short-term fix or maybe a long-term for now. But I think as of right now, B is very much a good grade.
And also, you just said, like, if you use that analogy, which I like, then he is short-term B right now and long-term probably C. And if he's not, like, if he stayed in B, great. We'll have no problem leaving him there because obviously we'll be really happy with what he's doing. So I think that's fair. I would say, like, Alex, you should probably pick the next. We'll just keep going in a line.
Yeah, sounds good. That's a really good logic too. I think to like start as a B term solution, see if he moves down to being a C tier player or not, and if he's not moving down, that means he's excelling in his role. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't want to pick anyone too easy. I feel like there's some people that are like too easy. I think for Dalton Connect, I guess I'll do that. People are gonna have questions as to is he ready? This is something I'm like curious. Should we do C minus or D plus? I am not happy with Dalton Connect this week. I'm going to admit it. I think that I think in like Toronto and like the Pistons, he wasn't too bad. He was decently efficient, but like he didn't get that many minutes. But then I think in the two most recent games with Memphis and 76ers, he just was not doing it for us offensively at all. And I talked about the minutes earlier. I'm pretty sure the reason why he's restricted on minutes is because he is a liability on the defense. And obviously, you don't expect crazy good defense from Dalton Connect, but I also do think that we need somebody that can contribute, given just how low our ceiling is. And I think that because Dalton Connect's defense seems to be like a direct hit to his minutes, as well as his efficiency slowly fluctuating in that Memphis game and in that 76ers game, I'm like curious as to like, do you think he deserves C minus or D? He definitely went down a little bit. I just don't know if he went all the way down to D or not. Also, the fact that in the two games where he was super inefficient, he took significantly more shots. Took 7 and 8 field goals, and he just wasn't able to carry that load either. So I want to hear from you guys, but I'm definitely thinking demoting him to C minus to D plus.
I would agree with pretty much what you're saying. I'm his biggest fan. I think he's great. I think he's going to be great. I think he was, what was he? He was B for us last week, right?
No, I think he was like C plus, I think.
Yeah, he was like, let's say C letter grade. He should be lower, but last week did start to take into account what we saw this week as well, because it was only the first week where I thought, maybe he'll be really good right away. So I would put him in a C, and I would put him lower than Rui, but I can't put him in B or in D, Alex, because Dalton, compared to what Dalton should be for a rookie, is playing C minus basketball, and D'Lo, compared to what D'Lo should be, is playing D basketball. So, like, for example, D'Angelo Russell is actually still better at basketball than Dalton Connect. But in terms of like them going up and down in our current logic, Dalton should be a C minus, essentially like moving down one like spot from last week. Alan, you got that, or you want to make any changes? You may be working on the Twitter side as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at our rankings for that one. We had Dalton at C, and I'll sort of stick him at C. Like I said, in terms of minutes and also his opportunities is limited right now, but I don't think anything has digressed down to where we could put him at a D.
Yeah. So let's put him C minus, Alan. You can go next also with picking someone.
Let's go with Austin Reeves in this one. I feel like he's at an A. I feel like S tier is like the best of the best. And Austin has stayed where we at least had him last week with an A. So I keep Austin at A.
Agreed. I don't think we saw anything to bring him down. And also, like, to make it fair, for example, like, let's say AD is S. Role players should still be able to, on our list, earn S, but they would have to play like exceptionally better than anything we've seen from them. So I do think Austin like would have a chance to be S, as well as like Rui potentially, but he's an A. I mean, Same story as last week. But the playmaking's gotten a lot better this year. He looks good as a point guard. He has enough effort on defense to guard point guards like a Tyus Jones or Quickly, even though he's not the best defender. And his shooting's up to 38% from three. I mean, there's a lot of reasons he should be A. He's probably been the second best in terms of his expectations after AD.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the A. I think Austin has always been like this high volume type of guy where he's gonna take a lot of shots, he's gonna get a lot of shots, and whether he has an overall good season efficiency, but whether he's efficient per game or not really depends on the day. I feel like that's just something that Austin has always been, and he's just slowly but surely doing a better job of getting into his role. And I think he is doing a better job of getting used to being on the ball more, because JJ did talk about how he wanted AD and Austin Reeves to be some of the main vessels of offense in this season. I think that Austin Reeves is slowly but surely getting more accommodated with and like getting more used to that role, and he's doing a really good job of it. I think if he were to be S tier, I think he would really have to like fully 100% embrace the role of being that point guy, and as well as maybe like being like a little bit more consistent in his efficiency. Although again, season wise, he's doing better. Just a little bit more game to game consistency in his role, and I think that'll put him at S. But he's doing a really great job. He took over a few games here and there alongside AD, so I think A makes sense.
Yeah, let's put him in A. I'll do Max Christie below D'Lo. There's nowhere to put him. He's not injured and he's not a Julie guy, especially after that contract. So D below D'Lo. I think we don't need an explanation for that one. If you guys agree.
Yeah, I think so.
There's also just nowhere to put him. Like, I know he didn't really play that much. So let's do that. Alan, let's do Christie D. Go ahead, Alex.
I think, and I'm going to do a little bit of a transition. I think Christie at the bottom of D makes a lot of sense. And I think that I'm going to place Gabe Vincent between D'Lo and Max Christie, because like Gabe Vincent was so bad as well, right? Like he underperformed his expectations of being a shooter, of being what Rob Pelinka likes to call the combo playmaking guard. He absolutely underperformed, and his defense was not enough to even make up for that. I think, however, the main thing is that like Max Christie got a new contract and fully lost his spot in the rotation, at least for a little bit. Whereas like Gabe Vincent, whether we agree or not, is still having some sort of a role. So I think that Max Christie at the bottom of the D makes sense, and I think Gabe Vincent is just like a tiny bit above him.
I think that's fair. We don't need to get too nitpicky on this because we both think D, but I would say like I could see a world where he's actually lower because of the expectations coming into being a Laker and how he's just, the last 2 years given us actually nothing. And like we saw great stretches from Christie in the past. However, Christie this season would probably be the worst guy who's gotten rotation minutes over Gabe. So I'm going to agree with you. Just a little thought, but I would put Vincent in the middle of those two. Same with Alex. And now Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, same here. Let's go with Jackson Hayes. I think it's plain simple. I got him at a C. I can't put him near B. He has his issues, but so far in his role, he's doing well.
I think so. This tier list is solely on the way they play for the team, because if it was like a combination of everything, I would automatically have him at like a new tier on the very bottom called Jackson Hayes, for very obvious reasons. But if we're looking at just the play, I think C, mid to low C makes sense. I mean, he's doing his job as a backup center. He was never really meant to be like the direct second string, but like because of roster mismanagement, he was forced to be. And like he's still got the same mistakes that he's got. Very sloppy in the way that he plays. Not the strongest rebounder, needs to be more physical, especially in interior defense. But like he's able to catch like catch and lob. And I feel like that's always kind of been what he's been doing. So I think like mid to low C seems fair to me. I'd be more than happy with putting him lower, but if we're looking at just play, then that's what I think.
Did y'all have him? I agree with the tier. Did y'all have him above or below Dalton?
That is a great question that I'm not sure yet. I see that in the previous list that Dalton is above Jackson Hayes in the C tier. Just for reference. I don't know how I feel yet.
Dalton had a worst week compared to what we wanted, and Jackson Hayes had a better. I'm leaning. I don't know about you guys. It could be like a tiebreaker. I would put him in the middle of Rui and Connect because, again, as much as I love Connect, like if he shows me something this week consistently, I'm so willing to put him in like B or higher in C at least. But like, I'm kind of like, I'm not a Jackson Hayes fan, but you literally need a backup center. You can't count on a rookie to do all this and that. Like you need a backup center. And I kind of think C. And the only way the backup center would be like a D is if it was like Colin Castleton was in the NBA. My number one op. Go ahead, Alan.
I think let's go with JJ Redick in this one. I think that I put him. I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted between top of C and B. Like I said, we're 2-2, which arguably could be a C. But at times, I think JJ Redick has done a good job, and we very much talked about how he made that change. He's showing frustration. He's showing his eagerness to, hey, I got to find some solutions to fix this team. And we saw first with that Philadelphia 76ers, although like I said, it became close later. He had a good lead versus that Philadelphia team. And he showed that he made the changes. He made the right plays. The team looked great, both offensively and defensively. So I'm conflicted between B and C. But he'd be top of C in my opinion,
though. There's no way Cam Reddish has done more for the team than JJ, though. That's the problem. Like in their own roles, JJ's been better than Cam. So I would say B. But if you did put him like behind Cam, it's fine because they're on the same tier. I think JJ's at about a B right now. What was he last week again? Let me see. We had him at
C.
Like he had a better coaching week this week than last week. Because think about like Memphis, we didn't have AD and it was really tough. And then Sixers, I thought he coached a decent game. Trying to think of the other games. He had a better week being 2-2 than like what was the other one? 0-3 or something. So yeah,
something. He was 1-2.
1-2
back to back, and then we won a game before that.
Okay, so if he had a slightly better week, I'd put him on B, but I wouldn't mind ahead or below Cam.
Yeah, I think whether he's above or below Cam, I really don't I'm really like not like picky on that. I think that JJ Redick does deserve to be higher than Rui, and I'm okay with putting him in B tier. I think it's just the fact that the thing that convinced me the most is that on top of the fact that he just in general had a better coaching week, he actually had like a really specific action that he didn't. Like he made the change to be so honest and transparent about how he views D'Lo on the team, benched him, and got the Lakers a win against the 76ers. Now, people can have discrepancies on like, oh, well, they should have won by 20 because the Sixers had all these injured star players, blah, 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 blah. We still got the win after a horrendous away record. And one of the reasons was because JJ Redick took direct action and was completely transparent about the action that he was taking on a player that it would be difficult to like put these sanctions on. Like D'Lo is one of the starter players. He is one of the bigger faces of the team right now, whether positive or negative. And be also on top of some of the attitude issues that he has, you kind of wonder, is he gonna is he going to play well if he gets demoted or not? But JJ Redick took that risk, and it directly led us to a win in some way or another. And I think it's interesting how like we're all like we have like slightly different things that like help us with the analysis. I think for me, it's just like if someone puts in a specific action that week that deserves them to go up. And I think JJ Redick did that. So I'm happy with B not picking on whether he's before or after Cam.
Well, your argument just kind of sold me on ahead of Cam, like better than Cam, because you actually make a really good point. Like I didn't even like take that into consideration, that action. But I think until we're proven wrong, like we said, the starting lineup being balanced with more defense and the bench having more scoring were two of our big issues to start the year that you can fix somewhat internally. So if D'Lo keeps playing well off the bench, and also like D'Lo had a decent like response to being benched, which like I don't feel like he was given good responses under Ham to being benched. So I would say like JJ's leadership is obviously pretty decent right now. I would put him at the top of B. And honestly, like I know we're still early. Like he's a pretty good coach, dude. He's not going to be the reason. A lot of people were hating on that move. He's not going to be the reason that we miss the playoffs or don't win a championship or whatever. It's just not going to happen. It's either going to be do you fix the roster or not? After all that, I'll take LeBron and put him in A because LeBron also had a way better week than last week. I would put him ahead of Reeves for now. I mean, it's still LeBron. Pretty self-explanatory. I thought, again, I just thought he had a better week than that second week when he was kind of slow. And, you know, he had that cold or whatever, was sick, bounced back from that, carried against Memphis, triple-double the other night. He's at A. And, like, I don't know if LeBron could ever be below B for me, but he's at A right now for me.
I think I'm pretty good with high A. Definitely. We are still taking into account that like he kind of had a little bit of a plateau the week like 2 weeks ago or so. Like we're still taking that into account. That's probably why he's not an S, but we are also taking into the fact that he had a pretty good improvement and back to strong form in this most recent week. He literally almost had a 40 bomb against the Grizzlies. He was the one player that actually played basketball that game. Like he was the one player that played like decent basketball, except maybe that was Cam's first full game as a rotation player, I think, this season. So him and then second place was Cam. Those are the only two that actually played basketball that game. And on top of the fact that LeBron is also taking on a pretty strong playmaking role with this team, and it's being seen more and more ever since the backcourt, especially D'Lo, has been having some compromise in the way he plays. So taking on a pretty big playmaking role once again, showing improvement from the week before to the most recent week, being the only real basketball player against Memphis. I think I'd put him above Austin Reeves. If you don't, I'm okay with that, but I think high A makes sense.
I think he's above Austin Reeves. I think he plays harder than anyone probably not named AD right now. I mean, it makes sense though, because Austin, LeBron, and AD all play the hardest. They're also like probably the three best or most talented players on the team, but they also play the hardest. Like they deserve to be there. I guess we don't even need to have someone do this one again because we're all on the same page. I'll just say it. I was going to say Alex do it. Anthony Davis S. Same explanations as the other week. I think continued dominance, top 5 player in the NBA. If you're not biased, I think it's kind of undisputed. Like Jokic, Shea, Luka, probably Giannis, and AD. I think that's my 5, unless I'm forgetting someone. But yeah, he's obviously the best player on the team on both ends too. I mean, I think he's past LeBron offensively. We talked about that at the start of this year. Last year, at times, he had passed LeBron too offensively, but best player on the team. Great tier this week. We put a lot of thought into each one, I'll say. It's crazy because, like, I know we're growing and we have these great people in the chat and all this, but like if you are a Laker fan watching, I don't think you would be able to find like a better tier list in terms of knowing so much about each player out there right now. I mean, maybe like Trevor Lane and Laker Nation, shout out to them. He knows like everything about every player. But besides that, kind of big example, I mean, we are giving you some analysis on different players that like is unbiased because we can critique our own players, but we also praise them when they do well. And I feel like we almost take like the Bill and Stu approach of announcing, but we're using that for the tier list. So yeah, great list this week.
Yeah, if you're a Laker fans, like I said, share this podcast, share our playback, share on YouTube, etc. Like Jake mentioned, we talk about all the players. Like I said, it's not all about AD and LeBron. It's all about the whole collective unit. As AD and LeBron, we know they are great players. We've seen it every season from our head coach who coached them, Deverham, Frank Gold, etc. We know that they can be great, but the other players have to put in their work. So these are why these tier lists are important. It's just because we look at every single player. The minutes they play, the opportunities they get, they matter at the end of the day. So he said, shout out to the Quest for 18 podcast. As always, lasting hot takes for end pod.
I feel so uninspired for hot takes without Earl here. I'll be honest. Let's see. So it was like Toronto, San Antonio was Friday, Wednesday was Grizzlies. I think we beat the Grizzlies by 20, like commanding win. I think that's a fair take. They killed us the other time without AD, but it's flipped because now their best player, Ja, is out, and our best player is playing, unless something happens. Pray it doesn't. So I think we're going to beat the Grizzlies by 20, and I think AD will have 40 against the Grizzlies. Those are going to be mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say 80 first 40 bomb within the next 3 games. I was gonna say that. I gotta think of another. I want to think of another player because I feel like it's really easy to like put AD there. I think Cam Reddish will have another. I think Cam Reddish will have another 8+ point game. It's really hard because sometimes he just like does nothing on the offense. But like I think if he's taking his role seriously, he's gonna have another 8+ point game.
We're gonna go bounce back game for Rui Hachimura, and off the bench, Dalton Connect. If he gets the right minutes, let's give him 10+ minutes tonight versus Toronto, and he could get 10+ points versus that team. So overall, great show, great podcast. Thank you all for joining us. I believe like we reached a high of almost like 17 viewers on the playback, and also on Twitter, etc. We have our amazing viewers out there, almost like 100+, and also our Quest for 18 podcast Twitter. We had amazing viewers there. So as always, have a great rest of your day. Tune into the Playoff Sports Network. They will be hosting the Lakers versus Toronto Raptors game. You'll see us there, and everyone else join that. And as always, have a great rest of the day. Let's go Lakers. Peace, everybody.